Today I'm going to talk about the 2020 presidential election. One of my friends emailed me and said, help me understand this election. You're the smartest political person I know. I think I'm probably the only political person he knows, but I'll take it. So I'm going to do a video on what I think is going to happen this election cycle, and I think Trump's going to win. Now, you might ask, how do you think Trump's going to win? He's up by 8, 9, 10 points. Well, there's two reasons why that's wrong. First, the Biden up by 8, 9, 10 points is a national poll, and the media should not use that because they know that it's wrong. They know that it doesn't mean anything. Biden could win California by 1 vote, or it could win it by 1 billion votes, and it doesn't matter. He gets 55 electoral college votes. That's what matters, not how much someone's ahead by. And like I said in another video, Trump always underperforms in polls. For whatever reason, Trump supporters don't get captured in those polls. Maybe they hide from the polls. Maybe the pollsters don't want to question them, but Trump always overperforms his polls. And it's by a 2 to 5% margin. It might even be more this time. Now, to get an idea of what's going to happen, we've got to go state by state, at least these states that are up for grabs. I don't care about the states that are solidly blue or solidly red. For my purposes, they don't matter this election cycle. I'm going to start with the states that Trump needs to win. If Trump loses Florida, he loses the election. A fact that no one has won Florida in the last 40 years and not won the presidency, with the exception being 1992 when you had a third-party candidate, Ross Perot, that siphoned off about 70% of the vote. And I think Trump's going to win Florida. I think it's going to be a 2 to 3 point victory, which in Florida is an easy victory. I don't think there's going to be any hanging chads in Florida this time. And the reason for this is that the early vote is very strong for Trump. Now, if you go look at the early vote, you might say, how do you make that conclusion? Biden's ahead by over 100,000 votes. That's not nearly enough. Democrats vote early and they vote by mail, especially this election cycle where CNN and MSNBC has scared the Democrats to death. So they're not leaving their house. The mail-in ballots are going to be Democrat, and the day of the voting is going to be Republican. So it's like the Democrats are going to try to build a dam as high as they can in each state, and then hope the Republican tsunami doesn't overwhelm their dam. Well, in order to win Florida, they needed to be ahead by 600, 700,000 votes. They're up by 100,000. That's not nearly enough to carry Florida. Trump is doing really well among the Latino population, especially the Cuban population in southern Florida. They're going for Trump 70-30. I think I know the reason for that is that the Democrats have gone increasingly socialist and communist, and a lot of the Cubans escaped on rafts and whatever they could to try to get to Florida. So they know what a communist regime is like, and they don't want anything to do with it. Trump's also doing well in Central Florida and well in the Panhandle. Now, the Panhandle is important because there's a lot of white working class in the Panhandle. And guess where there is a lot more white working class? In Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, the Midwest, and the Rust Belt. So if he's doing well down here, he's probably going to do well up here. Now, the next state I want to go to is Georgia. The Democrats think they can flip Georgia. Joe Biden visited, so they must have some internal polling that says they can flip it. And the early results are not super great for Trump, but I think it's enough for Trump to keep Georgia in a close election. Now, South Carolina is going to go Republican unless there's a total Biden blowout, but other than that, Trump's going to keep South Carolina. North Carolina is an interesting case. I do believe that it's close. I do believe the polls here because I've looked at the polls that have gotten it right and the polls that have gotten wrong, and the polls that have gotten it right have North Carolina as close. I think Trump's going to keep North Carolina because the independents in North Carolina tend to vote red. They tend to break red. So if you see it even between Republicans and Democrats, the independents are going to break enough for Trump that he's going to keep North Carolina. Now, I've heard some Republicans say that they can take Virginia. That's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. Virginia's going to stay Democrat. There's too many swamp people in Northern Virginia. I know some of these people. I'm friends with some of these people. I went to graduate school in Washington, D.C., and most of them are extremely liberal. So it's not going to happen. Republicans just don't have the numbers to flip Virginia. Now I want to go to the white whale of the Democratic Party, Texas. Texas has been the white whale of the Democratic Party for the last 30 years. Every election cycle, they're like, we're going to flip Texas this year. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. We can do it. Hasn't happened. And the reason it hasn't happened is I think the Latino population, which is growing, is not quite as liberal as the Democrats thought they would be, especially on social issues. And so enough of them are voting Republican to keep Texas red, at least this election cycle. There's a lot of people coming from California into Texas, and they're voting the same way as they did in California. So Texas might flip next cycle, but for this cycle, it stays the white whale of the Democratic Party. New Mexico goes Biden. That's not going to be that close. Colorado goes Biden. Arizona is an interesting case. Arizona is basically the countryside and the older population versus people coming in from California and the growing Latino population. But like I said before, the Latino population is not quite as conservative as the Democrats and the Republicans thought. And especially this election cycle, Trump is doing fairly well among Latinos. So I think that's going to be enough to keep Arizona. Utah is going to be more for Trump than they were last time because there's no third party. Last election cycle, there was a third party candidate that siphoned off a lot of would-be Trump voters among the Mormon population especially. He's not there this time. So Utah goes more red than it was before. Some Democrats think they can flip Montana. That's just not going to happen. Nevada is an interesting case. Nevada is Wayne County against basically the rest of Nevada. Well, not quite. Again, I'm doing generalizations here. I could do a county by county breakdown in some of these states, but I think the people watching would be bored to death. So that's a generalization. It's the population centers against the countryside. Nevada is going to be solidly Biden. There's probably a small chance that Trump takes Nevada if Trump does really well, if it's like a Trump wipeout, but I don't see that happening. Nevada stays blue. Now, Iowa. I don't think Iowa is a toss-up. The farmers actually like Trump. I've heard all the Democrats say the farmers hate Trump. Trump put tariffs on their products. Well, yeah, but the money that he got from the tariffs on China, a lot of it he gave to the farmers. So the farmers actually like Trump, and they're going to vote for Trump. Iowa is going to go Trump. Kansas is going to go Trump. Missouri is going to go Trump. Indiana is going to go Trump. Now, Ohio, I don't think this is a toss-up at all. Again, Trump underperforms in polls. So when you see Ohio as even or Trump up by a couple points, that's going to translate to about a 4 to 5 point victory for Trump in Ohio, especially with the enthusiasm gap. Trump has voters that would drive through 3 feet of snow to go vote for him. Biden does not. Now, if it was Bernie, all the leftists would be driving through 3 feet of snow to vote for him, but not for the weekend and Bernie's candidate. Ohio goes Trump. Michigan is an interesting case. I'm going to give it to Trump. Basically, this is going to be all about turnout. You have the major cities, Detroit, against basically the north and the countryside. And it's whoever's going to be able to get their vote out more. And again, I think Trump has such an enthusiasm advantage that he's going to take Michigan. It's going to be close. It's going to be a couple percentage points. but I think he takes Michigan. Same thing in Wisconsin. Now there's a bellwether city in Wisconsin, Kenosha. Kenosha is where they had the riots, and I think that is why Trump went to Kenosha. And it was kind of funny. He's like, well, I watched his stump speech. He's like, Kenosha was going to get burnt down to the ground. They wanted to burn it all down, but I saved it. I sent in National Guard and I saved your town. Trump is a narcissist, but the point I think was taken that he's going to be the law and order president, and Biden is going to let the rioters do whatever they want. And I think that's going to resonate. But you want to look at Kenosha. If Kenosha goes Biden, I think Wisconsin goes Biden, and vice versa. Minnesota. A lot of Republicans think that they can flip Minnesota. Minnesota's a lot closer than it was in past election cycles. Minnesota's a weird place. They elected Jesse Ventura, if you remember, that WWE wrestler, quite a few years back. It's got a lot of independents, but unlike North Carolina, where they go Republican, the independents in Minnesota tend to go Democrat. And they also have a lot of really far lefties in Minnesota. So I think that Trump is going to make it closer than last election cycle, but I think that goes to Biden. So Minnesota stays blue. Now, we get to the knockdown, drag out brawl that is going to be Pennsylvania. I think this state is going to be won by either party by tens of thousands of votes, not millions. This is basically the eastern part of Pennsylvania, Biden's stronghold. Here, I don't think Biden's going to get too many more votes than he got before, because Clinton won that by a lot anyway, so he doesn't have too far to go. So it's going to be that Philadelphia, the East versus the West here. Obviously, it's more complicated than that. I'm trying to simplify it for everyone. I could, again, go county by county. But Pennsylvania's going to be interesting. Well, I would watch CNN just for Pennsylvania, because Biden's going to have a massive early lead in Pennsylvania because of the mail-in voting, and because Pennsylvania usually counts Philadelphia first, and Philadelphia is extremely Democrat. So the CNN people are going to be high-fiving at the beginning of the night, and then as the night goes on, the lead's going to get less and less and less. I'm not sure if the Republicans are going to be able to overcome that massive lead. I think they are, but I'm a little biased. I don't like Biden, and I did not vote for Trump last time, but I'm voting for him this time. So I think Pennsylvania goes to Trump, and I mean by the smallest of margins. I'll give an example. If you have 1,000-man armies on each side, and they go and fight, it's going to be 10 guys that are left with bodies everywhere that are going to be planting the flag, the victory flag. This is going to be a brawl, but I think Trump keeps it. And again, this is very important because there's a possibility that Trump loses one of these states or both of them, so he needs Pennsylvania in order to take the election. I think Nebraska is exactly right. I think Trump keeps his district that he won last time, so I think that stays red. I think the other district goes Biden, and Alaska goes red. That's a pipe dream that they're going to take Alaska. And New Hampshire goes blue. I know Republicans think they've got a chance in New Hampshire, and they didn't lose by much last time, but it's just not going to happen. And I think that's all of the I forgot about one more Biden vote there in Nebraska. And I have Trump winning 306 to 232. Now, this could be wrong because I'm counting on a undercount of the Trump vote, the Trump in polls. Now, if they didn't undercount Trump in the polls, then this map is going to get flipped, and Biden's going to have all these states that I have Trump winning. But looking at the Florida results and some of the early results, I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is going to be basically the election. Anyway, that's about all. Remember to never believe in anybody's propaganda, not even your own. Thanks. Bye bye. And remember to like and subscribe if you like this video.